I'm Albert from Summer Associate Hub, and this is Practice in Point One, where we interview big law attorneys all about their practice in under 6 minutes, also known as Point One billable hours. So we're going to start right away. What is your name, your title, your practice area, and where you work?
Hi, I'm Amanda Zablocki. I am a partner and the co-leader of our healthcare team here at Sheppard Mullin, and I work in New York.
Fantastic. All right, so let's get started. Take us through a healthcare deal or matter that you'd work on from beginning to end.
Sure, I represent hospitals and health systems, healthcare technology companies, and a variety of other healthcare organizations in connection with engaging in mergers and acquisitions, joint ventures, and other strategic transformative transactions. So
Cool.
typically, my client comes to me with a problem and they're looking for a solution. So oftentimes we are thinking strategically about how we can engage in some partner type
Yeah.
transactions to fill a need for that organization. So the first part is really assessing what they're looking to achieve. Second part often is going out to the market and understanding who they might partner with. Third is working on a letter of intent, which essentially sets forth the terms of the transaction. The parties will engage in due diligence or really research into each other's business to see if it is a
Hmm.
good fit and to understand how to structure the transaction. I'll work with my client on putting together definitive agreements, the transaction agreements that establish the framework for the transaction. And then we negotiate that with the other party until we get to signing. In the healthcare world, a big part of our transactions involve regulatory approval. So once the transaction documents are signed, that's when we take it to the regulators and
Hmm.
seek approval for the transaction, and then we can close.
Fantastic. So you wake up in the morning, you go to work. What does your typical day look like at work?
My typical day at work is a long list of back-to-back calls. I am on calls almost every half hour with multiple clients, working on multiple matters on any given day. I work with a team of associates who support those matters and are doing a lot of the day-to-day work, but largely I'm interfacing with clients most of the day.
That's a great segue. So what do the associates on your team do? That's always helpful for law students to know.
It depends on what stage of the deal we're at. If we are at the initial stages, a lot of the work that they're going to do is on legal research, on some industry research, information gathering. As we get along the deal, they'll be helping with due diligence and really the investigative work behind the scenes as we're evaluating a transaction.
Yeah.
They often take the pen on the initial draft of the transaction agreements and ancillary transaction documents. And as they get more senior, I like to have them in the room with me as much
Yeah.
as I can, and they join me for negotiation sessions. They join me for discussions with the client, and they're really part of the process.
That's great. A lot of substantive experience, which is always good. So that's great to hear.
Absolutely.
Uh, so my favorite question, what is the coolest deal that you've worked on? Of course, nothing confidential, but I'm always curious to hear what the coolest deal that you've worked on.
Well, I worked on a transaction involving the Catholic Church when I was a mid-level associate. It was a multi-billion-dollar sale of a health plan. And it was very exciting because we got to negotiate some really critical provisions that ultimately became instrumental in the regulatory approval process. And we're talking the governor and the attorney general getting involved and reviewing that contract, and the provisions that I had negotiated at the table were the ones that became really instrumental in getting our clients a very positive outcome from that transaction, which did close. So it was very cool to work on.
Oh, fascinating. Thank you. So as a law student, choosing what area to go into, it's always helpful to know why certain attorneys chose their area. So I'm going to ask you, why did you choose to go into the healthcare practice?
I didn't always choose healthcare. I started my career as a litigator. Healthcare chose me. It was something that I was pulled into personally, and then an opportunity came up professionally to really dig deep. I think being in the healthcare industry, you have this unique opportunity to service the broader community in a way that, being a commercial litigator, I didn't feel like I could actually do. It felt a lot more like whose dollars
Yeah.
were in which pockets. As a healthcare lawyer, particularly representing the clients that I represent and doing these very large scale transactions, I can transform healthcare for patients in these communities. And that's a very satisfying, fulfilling job to have. So I love my job and I couldn't imagine doing anything else.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Amanda Zablocki, for these really great insights. I appreciate you joining us.
Absolutely.